Just want to do a little quick tech check. Can anyone see me or hear me? Can I get a little response in the private chat from somebody from my team that you can see me? Anybody see me? Fernanda, let me know that you can hear me and see me. Hello, Fernanda. Apologize to everyone, this is brand new tech we're using, and I'm not sure anyone can see me or hear me. Waiting for a tech response in production. Yes, you see me. How about my PowerPoint? Do you see my PowerPoint? Just a quick check, Fernanda, can you see the PowerPoint that I'm showing? Apologize, a little bit of new tech here. Everybody, we're looking forward to it. Okay, you cannot see my PowerPoint. Let's just see. Share screen, window, PowerPoint. I have no way of knowing if you can see it though. I'm going to have to ask Fernanda, do me a favor in Slack, because I can't see chat when I'm sharing my screen. Can you tell me if I'm sharing my PowerPoint in Slack, Fernanda? Okay, so I'm going live. Is this good to go, Fernanda? Just let me know one more time. PowerPoint and me. Let me know. Can you hear me, see me? Okay, there we go. All right, everybody, we are ready to go. Thank you so much. Apologies for the tech level setting. Brand new tech. We're streaming on LinkedIn for the first time live. And let me just share with you what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be talking about 3 recession-proof techniques to increase profits immediately. I know this is a topic that matters to everybody here because obviously we are in, and this happens in business periodically, we are in choppy waters in the economy. So it would not surprise me to hear from some of you that some of your clients are changing the terms of your agreement, postponing projects, programs, renegotiating prices. Our revenues are probably under attack. This is a very uncertain time. You have a high interest rate environment. You have probably a recession that we're probably already in, although no one has quite said it. And as business owners, you're being asked to project into 2023 with a lot of turbulence. So let's look at 3 techniques that will increase profits immediately. Everything you're going to see today comes from day 2 of the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program, which I will tell you more about. It is a 5-day program. This is a very special part of the program. It happens on day 2, and I'll share a bit more about that as we go. I am Louis Schiff. I am the chairman of the board of experts for the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program is a 5-day road mapping strategy program for the owners of businesses with revenues of $5 million or more. Typically, it goes all the way up to the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. And as I said, the participants are the owners of these companies. So during this 5-day program, everyone gets to participate. These are some pictures of our last program. Every type of person shows up, every business owner from every industry you can think of. It's highly interactive. About 30 business owners spend 5 days together, almost nearly locked in a room, working on envisioning the future of our programs and strategy for the future of our companies. Okay. Just quickly, what happens in this 5-day program is important because you're going to see a piece of day 2, these 3 recession busting techniques. So the first is, it's a 5-day program, session 1 through session 5. As you can see, it is a very, very full calendar. On day 1, we focus entirely on something that is true for every business owner right now, which is you're getting phone calls from people who are saying, maybe it's time to talk about buying your company. So what is it that is driving all of this exit pricing and all this exit activity? We spend the whole day basically getting up to speed on the economic environment that is driving exit prices. On day 2, which you'll hear a piece of today, it's how you can maximize your company's value as you think about potentially exiting, or at least understanding what your long-term game plan could be to exit. On day 3, we talk all about revenue and sales, how you boost your company's revenue. Actually, interestingly enough, day 3 is, while it's about revenue, this part today comes from day 2, which I'll share more about that in a moment. And then day 4, we talk all about the human component. Who do you need to scale? Who has to be on your team in order to achieve our goals? And what we do on all 4 of these days is we're working towards something called 1 year from today. Remember, Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program is a strategy program. Everybody leaves with a 12-month strategy that has been battle-tested by experts, that has been brought down to a very, very high level of detail, and that is highly designed to be implemented. Birthing of Giants focuses on a research-based methodology that identifies the 4 things that matter most. The first is capital market readiness. The second is financial model transformation. The third is amplified sales, everything to do with revenue. And the fourth is scalable management. Who gets us there? So by day 5, you are ready to go with a 1 year from today, a 12-month strategy that the board of experts and the faculty continue to help you with as the year goes on. The program is held at prestigious universities around the world, and I'll tell you a bit more about the program in a moment. But today, let's talk about 3 recession-proof techniques to increase profits immediately. This all comes from day 2 of the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. First, I'm going to give you some terminology we use in the program. We talk about money makers. These are companies that make money, of course. So a traditional money maker is going to be valued as a multiple of earnings. So what does that mean for those of you who haven't heard that kind of thinking? It's a money maker. For example, imagine a $5 million business with 10% earnings, 10% profit each year, $500,000. Now, if you look at a traditional money maker growth curve, we would apply a multiple of earnings. Let's say somebody comes along who wants to buy your company and offered you 10 times your earnings. That means if your earnings are $500,000, they would offer you 10 times $500,000. They're valuing this business at $5 million. I'm sure there are some experienced people in the seminar right now thinking 10 times earnings is a lot to be offered. And you're right. I'm just using it as a simple number, but you're right. 10 times earnings. I mean, these are challenging times, and so valuations have actually dropped in the year 2022. But there was actually a time towards the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022 where 10 times earning was being heard more commonly. But 10 times earning is definitely at the high end of the scale. Anyway, that's a money maker. Now let's look at a moonshot. We've got money makers and moonshots. A moonshot is a company that's valued as a multiple of revenues. Take that same company, $5 million business, but it's got a moonshot growth curve. Applying a multiple of 5 times revenue, that same company would be worth $25 million because you're taking 5x and you're multiplying it by the revenue of the business, not the earnings of the business. So the question you might have is, why are some companies a money maker and another company would be a moonshot? What is the difference between a money maker growth curve and a moonshot growth curve? Well, that is a big part of what we talk about during our 5 days in our program to figure out what kind of company you want to build. But this comes from a very specific part of it, which is how do we improve the net profit of our business? In other words, how do we turn our money maker into a better money maker? So I'll give you an example of the kind of work we're doing in the fellowship program. We'll take a look at this worksheet. A lot of times when times are difficult in a company, the first thing they'll try to do is reduce overhead. You can see that down here in the worksheet, overhead reduction. The second thing you might try to do is reduce your cost of goods sold, the cost of delivering your product. The third thing you might try to do is increase your volume, sell more. And then the fourth thing you might try to do is increase the price of your product. Let's take a look at the impact of these 4 areas on your business. So, top row there, revenue is $10 million of this theoretical business. The gross profit is 40%, $4 million. The overhead, SG&A, is 30%, $3 million, leaving a total earnings of 10%, $1 million. Looking a little lower, what if you made a 1% improvement in all these 4 areas I identified? If you reduced overhead by 1%, you would be adding $30,000 or 3% to the bottom line. If you reduce the cost of goods sold by 1%, you would be adding $20,000 or 2% to your bottom line. If you increase your volume of sales by 1%, you would be increasing $10,000 or 1% of total earnings. But this is the fun part. If you increase your price by 1%, you would be increasing the bottom line by $100,000, 10%. Now you can see why the instinct to focus on overhead reduction, COGS reduction, and increasing volume doesn't even add up to the total value of just increasing your prices by 1%. Just to be clear, if you just go back after this workshop today and add 1% to your price increase, in this example, if your numbers match or are similar to these, you could be adding 10% to your bottom line by that one thing alone. If you're expecting a 10% decline in business next year, and you just implement this one idea, 1% increase in prices, you could fill the hole of that loss in one move. I hope that in and of itself helps you realize that just a little bit of time together, I think it's about 15 minutes, we could boost your profits immediately. Now let's look at if we increase things by 5%. Reduce overhead by 5%, you could have a 15% impact on your total revenue, on your total earnings line. Reduce your cost of goods sold by 5%, you could have a 5% or $50,000 impact on your bottom line. Increase volume by 5%, you can also add $50,000 to your bottom line. Increase your prices by 5%, take a look, it's right there in the numbers. You could increase your bottom line by 50% from this one move alone. Think about it. All the energy we historically spend on reducing costs, on reducing COGS, on increasing volume, and how little time we spend on actually having a pricing strategy. So this gives you a sense of the kind of work we're doing at the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. So this section I'm about to share with you comes from the section of the day called Turn Your Moneymaker into a Better Moneymaker. I shared with you just a minute ago that there's something called moonshots, which is companies that are valued at a growth curve that will make your company valued at a multiple of revenue, not a multiple of earnings. But for this section, what we're sharing with you today is how do you turn your moneymaker, a company that is traditionally valued as a multiple of earnings, into an even better moneymaker. In other words, how do you increase earnings in your company? So something you can do, I'm about to go into it, but before I do, something you can be thinking about doing is applying for the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. This is a 5-day program where we go through an entire envisioning process, all designed to show you how much bigger your company can be. And we only choose 100 people a year for this program. And I'm here to share with you there are 20 spots left in the year 2023. If you think that you meet the criteria, which is you own at least 10% of your business and your revenues are at least $5 million, go to birthingofgiants.com/fellowship-program and learn what would happen if we spent 5 days figuring out just how big your company can be. Also, just as simple as anything, just go to birthingofgiants.com/howididit and you can access free videos of how Birthing of Giants graduates have done it. All the details of how they took their companies, which were doing very well, going through the Birthing of Giants envisioning process, and how they made their companies much, much bigger. They each spent about a half hour explaining how they did it. All you have to do is go to birthingofgiants.com/howididit, and you'll start off with Chris Roth's perfect business model story about how he created the perfect business model. birthingofgiants.com/howididit. At the end of this webinar, I'm also going to share with you one very special program that I'm only offering on this webinar to 10 people. And I'll share that with you at the end of this webinar. 10 people to help them turbocharge their company's value. Okay, so who has a pricing strategy? I ask this question because we know so many folks, entrepreneurs, when the going gets tough, when the economy experiences challenges, they start cutting costs, they start looking ways to cut COGS, they start, their first response to the sales team is sell, sell, sell more. They overlook the pricing strategy piece, which I just showed you can have a huge impact on your bottom line with relatively small moves. Pricing strategies that are available to you, cost plus pricing, taking the price of your product and just adding, you take the basic price to deliver the product and add on a percent that's been agreed upon. So cost of the project takes $100 and you agree you're going to add 10%, cost plus. Competitive pricing, where you essentially price your product in relation to your competitors, not necessarily in relation to the cost to actually deliver the product. Premium pricing. Premium pricing is you use your price to basically send a message to the marketplace that you are at the top of that marketplace. You purposely and consciously choose the top of the pricing range for your product or service. Think of Cadillac compared to Chevrolet. Cadillac is premium price to indicate to the end user that this is a premium product with a premium service model, and therefore it's going to be priced premium. Bundle pricing, where you essentially package different products and services together and create a bundle price that makes it more valuable. Freemium pricing is when you have a free product and then you move up to a paid product. I've just shared with you birthingofgiants.com/howididit. That is a free product, free videos. Then you can move up the ladder into other Birthing Giants solutions to help you solve your problems. We practice freemium pricing here. Hourly pricing, it speaks for itself. Good, better, best, I'm going to talk about in a moment. Let me skip that for a moment. Project-based pricing is where you stop doing work on an hourly basis and you start working on a fixed price project-based pricing. Value-based pricing is when you basically look at the value you're creating for a customer. Let me give you an example. If you have a product that's especially good for, let's just say, business owners in the pharmaceutical space who are about to launch a new product, a very specific profile of client, and you price your product based on the value it creates for pharmaceutical companies about to launch their new product. So you price based on the value you can deliver to your particular client, because you know that, let's say, a pharmaceutical launch is going to be a $1 million launch. You price based on the value you can create for that product launch. Again, just to repeat, you must know your client before you do value-based pricing. You can't just do value-based pricing for everybody. Dynamic pricing is pricing that shifts with certain conditions. So for example, when supply is tight, you might increase pricing. When supply is low, you might reduce, when supply is high, you might reduce pricing. Gas, obviously gasoline that we put in our cars, is priced dynamically based on oil demand. Loyalty pricing is when you price it based on how much business a customer does with you over time. Skim pricing is when you essentially skim the top layer of the pricing quadrant and then you keep adding to the price. In other words, start off with your product priced inexpensively, that's skimming it, and then keep adding to the price as time goes by, as the customer keeps, asking for more product or service, you start raising the price. Loss leader pricing is when you price it very low to capture the client, and then you understand that there's other products and services you're going to sell to them that allow you to raise the price and get the overall profit you were targeting with that client to begin with. And geographic pricing, obviously pricing for where in the country or in the world you're selling your product. These are just some of the pricing strategies available to you. In the Birthing of Giants program, every business in the room is in different age and stage, different industry. So our job during Birthing of Giants Fellowship program is to share all the different ways we can price and work with each business owner in the room to figure out what works best for them. But again, go back to the beginning. A 1% increase in that theoretical company, 1% increase in prices could increase earnings by 10% or $100,000 in that example. A 5% increase could create a 50% increase in the bottom line. So when you look at that simple concept, raising prices drives to the bottom line, it's more valuable than cutting costs. It's more valuable than increasing volume. And then you look at all the different strategies about how we could raise prices. That's the exercise here. Now, the example I shared in an article recently was based on good, better, best. So this is a gentleman named Chris who's in the HVAC business, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, repair, installation and repair, residential, not commercial, and in Las Vegas and the Southwest, a hot place. I'm quoting Chris Roth when he says, every person in the HVAC business is a genius when June comes around. It's a good business to be in when you work in the desert. But the challenge that Chris had, being in the HVAC business in the desert, Las Vegas and Southwest, was that there were hundreds of competitors. So he used the good, better, best pricing strategy. But let me share with you how he did it to maximum impact. First of all, he had good. Good pricing was basically a good quality unit at a reasonable price. And the idea in good, better, best is to sandwich and to direct your customer to better by sandwiching better between good and best. So his good was a good quality unit installed. His better was a good quality unit installed plus an annual service contract that would renew each year to keep that unit serviced. And his best was a better quality unit with an annual service contract plus priority service. Remember, this is the desert. So if something happens to your unit, you'd be put to the top of the line of people to get repairs. Good, better, best. Good quality unit plus an annual service contract, or a better quality unit plus an annual service contract plus priority service. So what he learned is that his annual service contract revenue, that piece of the better, was highly valuable to him. It became his most profitable revenue, and it represented monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue, either way, because that annual contract would turn over each year. And he learned over time that the profitability on his monthly and annual recurring revenue was 4 to 5 times the revenue, that the value of that revenue to the marketplace, if he came to sell his company, was 4 times the revenue. So remember, I shared with you earlier, a moneymaker is a company that's valued based on earnings. A moonshot is a company that's valued as a multiple of revenues. He learned that his monthly recurring revenue would be valued as a multiple of 4 times revenue, and that his static revenue, meaning the money he made installing these air conditioning units and selling the units, was valued at 1 time. So if his company made $1 million, if his company generated $1 million of revenue from selling air conditioning units, that added $1 million of value to his business. If his company generated $1 million of recurring service revenue, it added between $4 and $5 million to the value of his business. In addition, the annual and the monthly recurring revenue from the service contract was his most profitable revenue. So for him, a good, better, best strategy, driving people to better, which was a good unit with an annual service contract, meant that he drove much more profitable revenue, and he saw the value of his company grow up dramatically because of that new stream of revenue. This is why pricing strategy is so interesting. Yes, what I said at the beginning, in that theoretical example, adding 1% added $100,000 to the bottom line. Increasing your price by 5% added $500,000 to the bottom line. But how you implement pricing strategy is where it's all interesting. In the case of Chris, he learned that if he added service contracts or labor-based revenue as opposed to product-based revenue, he got a much bigger bang for his buck. The increase in price for his better offering added a lot more value to his EBITDA and to the value of his company. So in this example, that revenue stream of $600,000 a month in annual service revenue, which he got up to $600,000 a month, if you adjusted a one-time revenue, $600,000 is $7.2 million a year in revenue. If it was valued at 1 time, that company would be worth $7.2 million. But that revenue, that $600,000 a month, was valued at 4 to 5 times, $36 million in revenue, and a totally different outlook on the value of this company. A $28 million difference in revenue in terms of its valuation. So I'm sure the wheels are turning right now in what pricing strategy really means to your company. It's a significant lever in your company, and it can be used at any time. Pricing strategy is one of the biggest levers you have, and in an economically challenging environment, it could be the single biggest lever you have. So, again, this is part of our program called Turning Your Moneymaker into a Better Moneymaker. I think that if you're interested in learning how 10 more of these strategies can be applied to your business to show you how much bigger your company could be, you should head over to birthingofgiants.com/fellowship-program. If you have a 10% or more ownership stake in your business, and if your company is doing $5 million or more in revenue, you are a candidate for Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. We only accept 100 people a year. We've already got 80 people lined up for 2023. We're looking for 20 more folks to participate. For 30 seconds, let me tell you why we started Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. It was started by a group of Inc. 5000 community members, many post-exit entrepreneurs, some you've heard of. There's about $2 billion of exits between the half a dozen of them. And we had been at a session one day where they were talking about how, as global capitalism has thrived for 200 years, poverty has been diminished. So as global capitalism has spread, especially entrepreneurial capitalism, poverty in the form of reduced access to education, reduced access to healthcare, those had lifted, increasing access to education, healthcare globally, and that domestic violence had dropped as entrepreneurship and capitalism has spread globally. I was with a group of Inc. 5000 folks. We were super excited about what we heard, and we decided that if we could do the research and figure out why some companies thrive while others stall out or just disappear, and we could start working with the owners of those companies, we, the half a dozen of us, could have a huge impact on poverty globally, which at that point in our lives, and remains to this day, is one of our greatest values, something that we think is very, very important. And so we started the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program, and we started with 6 people in 2015. Now 2022, we work with 100 business owners a year who go through a process before we select them to participate. But I'll give you some sense that one of the folks we started with in 2015 came in with a business doing $4 million in revenue, sold his business last year for 2021 for $1 billion. We've had multiple hundreds of millions of dollars exits from companies that were relatively small when they started. We've had growth in revenues, growth in profits, growth in exit value, all from the last 6, now 7 years of this program. As we head into the 8th year of this program, we're looking for 20 more people to participate so that we can help your company be much bigger, much more profitable, so that you spread your economic impact around the world and therefore blunting poverty globally. That is the mission of Birthing of Giants. We also have a program that runs at Oxford University called Moonshots and Moneymakers, where for 5 days we essentially look at the marriage between innovation or technology and companies like yours, and how companies like yours can actually shift from a moneymaker profile, one that is valued as a multiple of earnings, into a moonshot profile, one that is valued as a multiple of revenue. And we've shown over the last couple of years this roadmap, and we run this program at Oxford University in England. It's a fabulous program that takes place in August of 2023. You can find out more about that at birthingofgiants.com as well. And as I mentioned, I'm going to mention to you at the end a very special private offering for just 10 of you to work with us in a small workshop on how to implement pricing strategies. You can see Birthing of Giants is committed to helping entrepreneurs like you succeed so that you build bigger companies, so that you blunt poverty globally. That is our goal. Okay, let's get back to pricing strategies. So how do we turn static income into recurring revenue? Now, think about this. We just shared earlier that Chris had X amount of revenue from selling units and Y amount of revenue from selling service contracts for those units. And the profitability on the product sale was relatively small, and its value in a valuation sense was also relatively small, 1 times revenue. But the profitability on his recurring revenue from his service contracts was much, much higher. And the value of that revenue to an outside buyer was also much, much higher, 5 times higher. So it was the difference between a company that could be worth $7 million and $36 million. And he did it by applying a pricing strategy, in his case, good, better, best. How do you turn static income into monthly recurring revenue? Here's a very big example. I shared this earlier in an article I wrote. You're probably familiar with Amazon Web Services. It is a cloud product. It's basically a way to rent access to the Amazon cloud. So you would use this to store data or run processes on your website. Microsoft has an offering. Google has an offering. Amazon has been a real market leader in it. But what's so interesting is that this was never on Amazon's roadmap when they started the business. They are, as you imagine, an e-commerce business. But along the way, they were doing really good work in scaling up their own hosting facilities. They looked for opportunities to turn what was an expense, website hosting. Of course, you can imagine for Amazon, website hosting is an enormous expense. And they said, how do we turn this into revenue? Now stop and think about this. How do you turn expenses into revenue? Amazon had a hosting apparatus that was state of the art so that they could run Amazon.com. Someone said, what if we turn this expense line into revenue? Fast forward a decade, it's an incredible success story. The Amazon retail revenue for 2021, in other words, the revenue from all those cardboard boxes of stuff that come to your house, was a whopping $470 billion. And they generated 4% profit on that $470 billion for a total of $20 billion. Now take the Amazon Web Services piece, which is separate from their retail revenue. They did $74 billion of revenue, but because it's such a more efficient way to generate revenue, they generated 35% profit on it, $26 billion. I mean, this is the headline of all headlines when it comes to turning expenses into revenue. When it comes to being very, very clever about how you generate revenue, is that Amazon makes less money sending products to your house than it does renting out its biggest expense line, which was hosting centers and infrastructure. They make $26 billion on Amazon Web Services and only $20 billion on the cardboard box business. Think of what you could do if you change your framing from turning expenses into revenue. So there's a lot of ideas here. You have any kind of a facility that you could rent out to another company. Turn your facility, which is an expense line, into revenue. Do you have equipment that other companies can use? Do you work with vendors right now that you could acquire and then become a vendor to all your competitors and other companies? Are you spending a lot of money on cloud-based services, software as a service, analytics tool, that you could possibly do what Amazon Web Services did, which is turn those software products into proprietary products and then sell them to other people? You've made significant investments into your technology. Can you do what Amazon did, which is productize your tech investment into digital products? Do you run services right now that can be turned into products? Or vice versa? Do you have products right now that can be turned into services, like Chris Roth did? He turned his air conditioning selling and installation business into an annual repair business. He turned his product into a service. Can you solve a technology gap in your industry? Is there some part of your industry that are all struggling with the same technology gap and you can help solve the problem? Can you rent the roof? Meaning, are there parts of your building that are available, maybe interesting to telecom companies? Have you looked at every nook and cranny of your physical infrastructure and asked yourself, who can you rent this to? Can you create a staffing agency model? Do the people who do great work for you, can they be essentially licensed out to other people, maybe even to your competitors or to your clients to do the work for them? Can you turn your expertise into a staffing model? Think about what it would be like to convert your expenses into revenue. Now layer on what it would be like to turn that kind of revenue into recurring revenue and how valuable that would be. So, simple worksheet here, list your top expenses. How could you convert your expenses into revenue, and how can you convert your revenue to monthly recurring revenue? Again, in the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program for 5 days, we grind down on so many different kind of approaches to your business like this. Now you can see why. This is just one small segment of our 5-day program. Now you can see why the number one response people have when they leave our program is, I had no idea how big my company could be. And 1 year later, because we operate on what we call 1 year from today, 1 year later, they're now implementing and we're helping them throughout. And their companies are much, much bigger in profit, in revenue, and in value. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what we do in the program. But think about all the ways you and your team can think about pricing strategy. So, again, next steps. If you have a business where you own at least 10% of it and the revenue is at least $5 million, consider applying for Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. We only accept 100 a year, and we have 80 already lined up for 2023. We'd love to see you be one of those last 20, but we need to know that you're interested first. You can go to birthingofgiants.com/fellowship program to learn more about our 4 pillars in the program: capital market readiness, financial model transformation, which is what today's unit came from, amplified sales, everything to do with revenue, and scalable management, which is how do you build a team around you that's going to help your business run itself. The 4 pillars, you can watch that video. It's about 9 minutes long on birthingofgiants.com/fellowship-program. Also, just to be aware, when you go to birthingofgiants.com, check out Moonshots and Moneymakers, our annual conference at Oxford University, the Oxford Innovation Conference, held every August, and all about how the marriage of technology and the marriage of moneymakers, companies like yours, can convert your moneymaker into a moonshot, a company that would be traditionally valued as a multiple of earnings into one that would be valued as a multiple of revenue. And finally, how I did it. Free videos about how they did it, how these entrepreneurs that we've worked with over the years have done it. Every company is different. As you know, your industry is different than other people's industries. I shared the good, better, best strategy from Chris Roth, and you see how that works in his business, but you know your business is going to be different. So the application of strategy to your business is very important. If you go to birthingofgiants.com/howididit, you'll get free access to all these videos, case studies of how them explaining how they did it. And then last but not least, I mentioned to you something very special that we're only offering at today's program. And here it is. We are going to put together in January a private group. This private group, we're going to take the faculty from our program that works with all of these pricing strategies and all of these revenue enhancing strategies, and we're going to choose 10 people to work with privately. This is a program that is going to cost money. It's a program where we're going to give preference to people who have enrolled in the fellowship program. So if you just today go to birthingofgiants.com/fellowship-program, you'll be fast tracked to be one of the 10 people in this program in January. And if you think you want to be in this program, send me an email. There's my email address below, ls@bgiants.co. Yes, it is .co. We're not missing the N. ls@bgiants.co. And tell me why you should be in this private program. But again, we're going to give preference to people who are enrolling into the Birthing of Giants Fellowship program. Okay, folks, well, that's about 40 minutes of our time together. I'm going to take questions now, but I wanted to share with you the 3 strategies that you could use to boost prices right now. And I want to, at least at the end of this time, have your wheels turning and think about what's possible and how many different ways we can increase your profits, your revenue, and your company value so that you have a bigger and better company that spreads your brand of entrepreneurial capitalism globally so that we can fulfill our mission, which is to diminish poverty worldwide thanks to your innovation and your efforts. Our faculty and our board of experts is looking forward to meeting you and possibly getting a chance to work with you. My name is Louis Schiff, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and take questions from the audience. I think the way to do this is to go into chat and send us your questions. Post your questions here, and I'll answer any questions you have. Anyone have any questions for us today? Struggling a little bit with the end of a cold here, so apologies for that. Any questions today from our audience about the 3 strategies that you can use to boost? Went to the top of my presentation here. 3 recession-proof techniques to increase profits immediately. Any questions? Curious to hear about what's been happening inside your business in terms of challenges you're getting from your clients about pricing, challenges you're getting from long-term contracts, and different ideas you have about how to boost your bottom line and boost your pricing. I know that we have a couple of Birthing Giants fellows here in the program. Any of them interested in sharing their techniques for boosting prices that we've talked about in the program? Maybe you have some experience at this point. Just if you want to share, just let me know. And I will share, you can imagine in the room that when we talk about raising prices, that you are, I see that Pat Isaac has just asked a question. I'll just finish my thought. That when we were raising prices, there's a lot of discussion in the room about whether, clients are going to push back. And so just a simple thought here is that if you have a business with a 10% profit margin and you raise your prices by 10%, and that's a big number, but just to keep the number simple, you have a 10% profit margin, you raise prices by 10%, and let's just say it's a disaster and you lose 10% of your revenue, but the other remaining 90% have a 10% price increase, you actually lose $0 in revenue. Now, obviously that doesn't boost your bottom line, but the negative impact of raising your prices is relatively small if you keep in mind that whatever percent you raise it based on whatever your profit margin is, if you do the math, you could in fact find that there's very, very little risk, even if you lose clients. And we also will talk about how sometimes losing those clients that are that price sensitive is not really the end of the world, because we get to focus on fewer clients and we have the same revenue we had before. And that in and of itself can change your financial picture. Pat Isaac asks, are you working with each organization individually or it's group-based? So Pat, Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program is a 5-day program with about 30 entrepreneurs in the room. And the faculty to student ratio is about 3 to 1, or 1 to 3. So we have about 1 faculty member for every 3 people in the room. But we work as a group, and we actually break the group down further into what we call tribes, groups of 6. The feedback from working in tribes in a bigger room where you can hear what everyone else is working on is fantastic. That being said, we are very available to our fellows on an individual basis. So after the 5-day program, all the graduates are invited into the Gathering of Giants, where we get together every January and every June. And in between January and June, we hold everyone accountable individually. So we have a combination of groups and individual work on the accountability side. And the results have been phenomenal. Let's see. And someone from LinkedIn just sent this message. Just wanted to offer a testament. We did the 1% technique across the board, and we are starting to see the positive changes in the bottom line. We actually went up on pricing 6% and followed the 1% on the rest. It's working, and our clients have not complained about the price increase. Well, I wish I knew who that was. It says LinkedIn user, but it's okay. That's the testament here. So again, he says, or she says, just want to offer a testament. We did a 1%. We did the 1% technique across the board. We are starting to see positive change in the bottom line. We actually went up on pricing 6% and followed the 1% on the rest. It's working, and our clients have not complained about the price increase. Fabulous. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else want to share some thoughts about what your experience has been with these price increase strategies, or any questions you have about these 3 recession-proof techniques, about Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program, or about my private group I'm going to be running in January for 10 business owners that want to work with us closely on pricing strategy, with preference given to those who have applied for the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. Any other last thoughts to share? I'll remind you, my email address is ls@bgiants.co if you want to email me about the private group. And I can see my team has been helping by putting in different links in the chat. For example, how you sign up for How I Did It, or how you apply for the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. And if you want the one of the greatest experiences of your life, and I can see Jason Lambiris is here with us. He went with us. Oh, there you go. That's Spencer Sands. Spencer, that was you. Okay, thank you so much, Spencer. That was Spencer from New Orleans telling us about the 1% technique he did. Spencer was with us just late October, and he's already seeing a boost on his bottom line. So that is about as good an impact as I can tell you, as I can, he can share with you. We'll be sending more information for you to each of you about the links we mentioned here about how to apply for Birthing of Giants, checking out Moonshots and Moneymakers at Oxford University, which is one of the great weeks of your life. Quick pitch for Moonshots and Moneymakers. You are in a place where 1,000 years of thought has taken place. Everything from Edmund Halley to Halley's Comet, to where the microscope was created, to where J.R.R. Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings. And we all gather as a group of entrepreneurs to innovate just as those people innovated. And we work together. We actually interface a lot with the Oxford innovation community. So you hear about the kinds of innovations coming out of the university environment. that simply open up your mind about the possibilities of your business. After that week, lots of our Birthing of Giants, or rather our American entrepreneurs, end up doing business with a lot of those Oxford innovators. It's a fascinating week. So, Spencer, thank you so much for sharing your take on the implementation of this strategy after just 2 months. Our team will be following up with information about Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program, Moonshots and Moneymakers. Go to birthingofgiants.com/howididit right now and just sign up for our free explainer videos. And then we have a private group where 10 of you are going to be joining us for a very small workshop on price increase strategies. And I think I will end here with a quote from Greg Thoreau. Greg Thoreau is one of our great graduates. He's been around since 2017 with a great business based in Des Moines, Iowa. And Greg's actually quoting one of our faculty members. He says, Norm Brodsky told me, if you don't ask, you don't get. Greg says, I've never been afraid to increase prices as our clients feel they are happy paying for above average service. And Greg goes on to say, thank you, Greg. Being part of Birthing of Giants has had a great impact on our overall company. And we have watched Greg do amazing things. He's also been with us to Oxford. So again, we'll follow up from this about the private group. Again, that group, there's going to be a charge associated with it, and it's going to be preference for people who have already applied and are already on their way to joining us at the Birthing of Giants Fellowship Program. We're looking forward to working with you. And thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday, December 15th. And we wish you luck. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to the team, Fernanda and Thiago, for helping putting on this great program. Thanks, everybody.